Hello, hello. Y'all ready? We've got a special guest coming up, and I've known her for now 3 or 4 years, and she is the marketing director for the Augusta Regional Airport, business development, and oh my gosh, next to Atlanta Hartsfield, the Augusta Regional Airport is making the biggest strides in our state. So I'm really excited to introduce my good friend, Diane Johnston with the Augusta Regional Airport. Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Appreciate the offer to come out and talk to you. Nice wing aircraft here. We hope to have one of those on display at the Innovation Exchange.
There you go. Do you want me to run the slides for you?
Do you have a clicker or no?
No.
No. All right.
If you can just right here.
Can I just enter?
I hope. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this morning I'm going to be talking a little bit about everything. So kind of our working group. This is our second working group, or a reconfiguration or an addition to our first working group, which was kind of looking at different things. So this is going a little bit further. From that working group, we're going into a tabletop exercise, which is going to be the day before the Innovation Exchange. And then we are on our 6th Annual Innovation Exchange. So okay, that didn't work. Didn't get the picture up there. That's okay.
What are you looking for?
The map of the airport.
Oh, I didn't see that. Didn't think.
Okay. Well, that's okay. So in 2021, we had a working group that we realized that we hadn't, and if y'all have heard this, and I know some of you probably have, but if you have, sorry for the repeat, but we realized at the airport that we hadn't considered any of the new technologies out there. And we felt like we really need to start thinking about it because it's on the horizon. It's going to be here before we know it. And so we need to kind of start to incorporate that. And so what we did was we got a group of industry partners together, and we just asked them to help us look at our airfield and determine where we could best situate some of these new technologies. So we wanted to make sure that we were looking at both, drones, eVTOL types of aircraft, cargo operations in response to that, and the different types of eVTOLs as well, because some of them have very different models. Some of them are much smaller, others are larger and can go a lot farther because they can carry larger batteries or whatever. And so we looked at our airfield, and the whole east side of our airport is currently undeveloped. And so obviously that was going to be a good spot for everything. Understanding that with the smaller vehicles, for instance, like a SkyDrive, I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the SkyDrive aircraft, but they're going to be 3-people aircraft, which is basically, and it's going to be just about a 25 or a 30-mile range on their vehicles. That's what they're projecting. So we're looking at going from the airport to different points around the city, but nothing that's really a regional type of thing. Whereas a Beta aircraft or an Archer aircraft or a Joby is going to have a much larger range. It's going to have a larger aircraft, and it's going to be able to go a much longer distance. So it could be really, when you think about it, a true regional type of carrier. So that's kind of exciting. But in looking at our airfield, we kind of felt like, okay, so for the smaller aircraft, if we put them near the main terminal and near the FBO, it's the perfect opportunity for them because they're going to go very short distances. So anyone that's coming off of a commercial carrier or coming off of a general aviation business jet and needs to get somewhere in a hurry, they'll be right there. And it'll be an easy transition. Whereas with the Jobies or the Archers or the Betas, Now they're going to be going probably a longer distance, 5, 6 passengers, whatever, and could go from, say, our airport to another small airport or vertiport in a different city that may be a business, let's say Bridgestone, because they're in our community or in our MSA. So if Bridgestone needed to go, say, from the Augusta area over to Nashville, they could do something like that easily. So with SkyDriver, the smaller vehicles being on the west side of the airport, nearest to the terminal, they'll be able to easily get out there. Having the larger aircraft and the opportunity to expand on the charging stations and things like that would be on the west side of the field. And actually, we could have a separate small terminal just for that type of operation. So those would be on the west side of the field, which wouldn't impact pretty much anything, unless, of course, they're going to try and cut across traffic. So at any rate, originally we had, I think, about 8 or 10 partners. We currently have, I want to say, close to 30 partners. So we've really expanded it because back then the industry was very new. So you can kind of see some of the, and matter of fact, some of you folks are on this list as well. But when we first started looking at it, the industry was so new, and all we really were kind of looking at was, okay, what do we need to do with our airfield? And what infrastructure do we need to have in place so that we can make it accessible and accommodating for these new technologies? Well, now that we're 4 years down the road, there's a lot of other things, because we're starting now to think about, okay, what routes are going to work possibly from our airport? And not only just from our airport, but within our city or within our region. What routes are going to work? And so we had to start thinking about other things. And obviously, I don't know anything about anything. I'm an airport person, so we're kind of a landlord. And we just want to make sure that we give you, everyone, what you need to be able to operate, whether that's a drone, whether that's an eVTOL, whatever it is that you need to operate at our airport, we want to be ready for. And so we started looking at some of the other things like the weather, like traffic management, charging and power. So all kinds of things that we hadn't really thought about before. And it's kind of overwhelming, at least from my perspective. And I mean, I used to be a pilot way back in the day. I've never flown a drone. Don't understand the differences, although you would need to know the airspace and stuff. So that's also a consideration as well. You know, how do you incorporate these vehicles that are going to be flying at a very low level? So of course, had to get our GIS department involved so they can start looking at, you know, how we're going to incorporate this kind of stuff. So there's a picture of what we could see. And so everything, the real very busy side, that's our west side of the airport, and that's where our commercial terminal is, where our FBO is, where maintenance and standard aero is. And right now on the east side of the airport, none of that is there. Although we have just recently completed a portion of taxiway golf. So it goes from 1735 up to 826 and cuts off there. But what that's going to allow us to do is that's going to allow us to put some ramp right in here. We're going to start just a partial, but that'll give opportunity for those folks if, let's just say, a Beta or a Joby or some new upstart wants to come in and build a manufacturing facility. That's a perfect opportunity for it. This is actually where we show the vertiport being. And all of this is could change, don't know. I mean, that's going to kind of depend on how the industry starts to develop. And we have some areas over here where we call the drone zones. So we're trying to make sure that we can accommodate just about everything, that is aviation related and be accessible to them that we can be. So from our new working group, we've developed a tabletop. And for us, for this tabletop, obviously you can read that, but what we want to do is just take time to be able to look at what's happening, try to figure out where we need to be, what we need to be thinking about, all those little details that we have no idea about. So again, that's where our working group comes in, so that they can say to us, whoa, you can't do that. Or, hey, have you thought about such and such? And, oh, you really need to be looking at so-and-so, or whatever it is that we haven't, that we have no idea that y'all are going to need. And so we've, again, reached out to our working group. They've been great. So our tabletop is going to look at several different hypothetical routes from our airport to the community. So we're going to look at going from the airport to Fort Eisenhower, from the airport to one of the hospitals, which already has a heliport, but of course we know that most of the heliports in the state of Georgia are not currently usable as a vertiport because the vertiport footprints are much larger. So that's going to change, I believe. Do we have any FAA people in here? No? Okay, well, we believe that that's going to change somewhat as the aircraft start to come on board and get proven. I think that we'll start to see that there's a lot more heliports out there that could be usable as a vertiport. But at any rate, so we're looking at Fort Eisenhower, the hospital, the National Golf Club, obviously, where they have that little golf tournament that we host every year. And we're looking at also an airport up in South Carolina, so the Greenville Downtown Airport. And I think that we've got a couple of our OEMs that want to start exploring some of these operations. And so that's going to be kind of what the tabletop is looking at. And that could, so this is some of the stuff that we're going to try and cover in there. It's going to be just a 3.5 or a 4-hour event. So don't know how much of this we'll be able to look at. But these are all the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about and making sure that everyone else is thinking about it as well. Because what we found is everybody always thinks they know everything. And matter of fact, a lot of people have told us, oh, we're the only ones that are doing that. And yet we'd walk over next door and they'd say, yeah, we're the only ones doing that. And I'd be like, so our Innovation Exchange kind of came out of that to where we could kind of get everybody in a room so everybody could talk about things and realize, oh, we're kind of doing something very similar. Let's see if we can get together. Or people that say, you know what, I'm doing this, and this could be a perfect partner to you for increasing such and such, whatever that may be. So kind of get that, the brain stems flowing and the trusts out there thinking about new opportunities with different partners that maybe they hadn't really thought of before. So we feel like the Innovation Exchange is a good way to kind of get people together and kind of get that kind of thing going. But this also, our tabletop, is kind of for the same purpose. So we want to make sure that, for one thing, to our working group, which is very disparate and spread out everywhere, we wanted to give them the opportunity to meet in person, although the tabletop is going to be a hybrid so that those people that are so far away and can't break away can still join us and provide some input. So we're excited about the tabletop. This is a first for us, but probably won't be the last. And hopefully AUVSI is going to help us out with moving some of these things forward. And so the Innovation Exchange, as I mentioned already, it's kind of an opportunity for people to get in together, collaborate. It gives people, some of our new entrants, an opportunity to showcase what they're working on. And I guess back when we first started it, it was all new. So no one had heard of any of this stuff, and I'd go into the community and talk about electric aircraft, and they'd be like, well, you'd have to have an awful long power cord for that. So, but a lot of other people would say, I would never get in one of those. Well, what's the difference if it's an electric aircraft or it's a fossil fuel powered aircraft. It's still going up in the air, getting you from point A to point B, and it's got a power source that's motoring it along there. So, but at any rate, it's, our innovation exchange is kind of just to give people exposure. And we also wanted to make sure, because it seemed like as we were going out and meeting with these companies, they get very, very focused on building their aircraft or their software package or whatever it is that their particular area of expertise is. And you got to think about, well, what about cybersecurity? And it feels like still to this day, there may not be enough of a focus on cybersecurity because it could be a real issue. I mean, we see that even with our vehicles today where everything is run by computer and someone can come in and take over your car while you're driving it. So we want to, that's one of our focuses and has been since our very first innovation exchange is what about cybersecurity? So at any rate, that's really the reason for the innovation exchange to start out with. And so if you're looking at what we're going to be covering this year, some of our panels, counter UAS is kind of our cyber type of thing right at the moment. But counter UAS is one of those things where the FAA says you can't do anything. And yet we've got these aircraft out there that could be very bad actors and you don't know. And I can give you an example. So we've got a gentleman that's going to be speaking about combating contraband ops. He's with the Georgia Department of Corrections. And he's going to be talking about all of these drones that are coming in and dropping contraband into the prison systems and how they deal with it. But if you were, what was it, just a month or two ago when we had all of the drones over New Jersey and everybody was freaking out, right? And where are they coming from and what are they doing? And the wildfires out in California where some recreational pilot slammed his drone into one of the water aircraft, the carriers that was dumping water and tore a hole in the aircraft. So I think that's something that's going to become much more important as well. How do we deal with those legally? And, what do we need to be thinking about? And we've also got a gentleman that's going to be coming in, where is he? UAS operations for medical organ delivery. So that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about at the tabletop as well, because we're working with Augusta University healthcare system. So what is that? And if you're looking at drones, well, they could deliver ultimately human organs, blood, other supplies, anti-venom, different things like that. But you could also, and I believe one of the folks at our airfield that does air med in a helicopter, in a standard helicopter, was up with one of the OEMs talking about how they could modify their aircraft for medical transport, for passengers and stuff. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. And we also have someone from South Carolina National Guard that's going to be talking about the military drones, the Gray Eagles. So I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen those things, but they're huge. So I think we've got a really great program this year, March 13th at the Georgia Cyber Center. Have any of you been to the program before, the Innovation Exchange? Well, thank you. Appreciate that. So hopefully we'll see some more of you there. There's our flyer, and if you want to go to the registration, you're certainly able to do so. And probably a lot of you are already on the mailing list, and I know that Lamar has done a great job about sending out our flyers and everything, so thank you for that. Definitely appreciate it. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Because that's it. Yes.
For parking, do you have any recommendations where to near the building where the location is going to take place?
So it's there's a garage right there at the Georgia Cyber Center. So yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, and your list of partners. In your list of partners you showed, I didn't see Delta on there. How involved are the airlines in this whole thing?
So the airlines are always very careful because of their proprietary interests and stuff. Most of them do have a partnership with one or the other of the eVTOL manufacturers. I think that Delta's maybe Joby, not positive on that. And we have not been successful in getting Joby to one of our events yet. So we've had Beta, we've had Archer, we had Lilium, who's no longer with us, I guess. We've had multiple other ones, but SkyDrive. But Joby and Wisk have been very elusive for us. But I think most of the airlines have already partnered, and a lot of the 135 operators also are looking at that kind of partnership as well. And it makes sense when you think about it, you know, because you come in on an aircraft, whether it be commercial or whether it be 135, and you need to get someplace that doesn't have an airport that can accommodate one of those aircraft. So if you have one of these smaller aircraft that can land just about anywhere, it's an ideal partnership. But yes, we do not have any of the main airlines at our partners yet.
You good?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for bringing me back out here. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. Diane. Thank you. When I was down at the Capitol on Wednesday, and one gentleman, I think he was with Lockheed, stood up and gave an example out of Augusta and said that they're having difficulty with the community involvement with approving. Are you running into those issues with any of the mayor or any of the council with worried about this?
So far, no.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that, you know, it's one of those things where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we are very aware that community is going to be very key in adopting these new technologies. Matter of fact, last year at our Innovation Exchange, we had someone that was specifically spoke to, you know, getting the community to buy into this type of thing. So we obviously, through our Innovation Exchange and through our partnerships, our working groups and things, that's, you know, how we are starting to get that conversation rolling. But yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a challenge, and I think Augusta is a great place to start some of these new technologies because we're not in Atlanta.
No.
We don't have high rises all over the place. We have a lot of rural types of areas around, so you can do a lot of testing and certification. You can get people kind of used to the idea of these aircraft flying over low altitudes and people seeing them. And I think as people get used to seeing them, it's like everything else. They, you know, and once they start seeing some of the opportunities like the air med types, like first responder types of things, then they get a lot more comfortable because they can see that it's a very good value for the community. Even just deliveries, when you're talking about like when we had the hurricane come through and we had no power anywhere for anything and no one could cook and no one could, you know, so to have the opportunity to go to a restaurant that has maybe gas stoves that continue to provide food, or actually a partnership with a grocery store would be great, because if all of their refrigeration and their freezers are down and stuff, they're going to need to get food out of there so that it doesn't go to waste and they don't lose it. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and we just need to be more aggressive, or maybe that's not the right term, but more
Proactive.
forward thinking.
Yeah.
And getting our message out there.
It's tremendous. If y'all don't know, Diane was able to get Beta Technologies to put in a charging station at the airport. And we actually saw the first in flight come through there.
Yep.
I wish we'd seen more, but you know, that was October of 23. Bob and I went out there. We were standing on the runway. That was the first electric craft to come through the state of Georgia.
Yes, it was.
And you are one of the ones responsible for that happening for us. And so I can't believe it, how Augusta has really grown and is the leader in the state of a lot of the eVTOL technologies.
Well, I mean, it's coming a lot faster than people thought it would, I think, and we just wanted to make sure that we were preparing our airport for it and our community.
Now, I do have one other question. You made a deal with Savannah River last year
Yes.
for testing, technology development.
Yes. We have a memorandum of understanding with SRNL and with one of our other partners, University of Alaska Fairbanks, who is one of the initial partners with the FAA and NASA for certification of the, back then it was mostly drone integration, but since, which I think started in 2018, but since, of course, they've started looking at the eVTOLs and the AAM types of, larger aircraft. So the partnership between us and SRNL also could incorporate any of our other partners. So after last year's Innovation Exchange, we had a meeting over at SRNL with Georgia Tech, with SkyDrive, with Collins Aerospace, and just kind of looking at, and the University of Alaska, kind of looking at, okay, if we have something, how do we need to prepare for it? So for University of Alaska, our partnership with them allows us to come in under their airspace. So they can say, okay, University of Alaska's airspace is also going to be over here. And they help us develop the COA. So whatever someone might have needed, they could have come in and said, yep, we're planning on testing XYZ. And we want to do BVLOS, so we're going to need radar to support that so that we can prove to the FAA that we're going to be safe in doing that. So we also, with SRNL, we're looking at possible alternative power plant production. And they, at the time, they were looking at a metal hydride called alane. I think they determined that that wasn't going to be successful because it didn't provide, the weight was still going to be just about the same as with a standard type of battery by the time that they got everything done. So, but looking at different opportunities like that with our partners. So, what can we do to help move the industry forward?
And you have. One last question is that Beta they came through a year ago. Is anybody coming through soon that you're knowing?
Well, I'm hoping that Archer will be coming through soon. I mean, they're supposed to be putting their aircraft out here. Their manufacturing facility, I think, actually opened last month, right? January?
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be putting out aircraft by April or May. Mm-hmm. So they're selling theirs already. We'll see what happens, but we've got our charging station waiting for them. They've partnered with Beta so that they're going to be putting in more charging stations around the country together. So, yep.
Yeah, Georgia's leading the way. So I'm really glad that you are here today. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you.
Can I see who's going to go to Innovation Exchange? Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you haven't signed up already, please go and sign up so that we get the catering count right, if you would. Thank you so much.
There you go. Thank you so very much.
You bet.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right. That's one of the things that's really cool about being a part of AUVSI is that we get industry experts. Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate you coming down here. She actually had to get up and drive from Augusta over here this morning. But we also have some other travelers that are here. I want to